Those units that you were talking about that were purchased at 1600 and now appraising at 1,900. How many of those are still closing
So that
versus just
it's
walking away or whatever the
Good
alternative is at
question.
the moment?
That's an excellent question. And it's the question that I think a lot of builders don't want asked, or at least they don't want people to think that there is a problem that is substantive enough that it starts affecting their bottom line.
It's busy around here. Oh,
Yeah,
Jesus.
the whole family
Everybody, yeah.
whole family
Congratulations to Bailey, right? Bailey on her
killing it, crushing
first
it.
first
Newest
lease.
member of the greatest organization on earth is
That's right.
crushing it.
Crushing it. She got her first lease and then she got her second lease. And
She's out there. She's
maybe
doing it.
today she'll have her third lease, it looks like. And somebody was nice enough to hand off a listing for a lease,
She's just
potentially.
she's just reliable. That's what she is.
She is the most
She's
reliable.
just reliable.
Like
It's
both my kids are very different from each other. And when I talk about Bailey, like the reliability is off the charts. And if you just tell her once how to do
Mhm.
something, boom, that's it.
You know
She's
it's going to
off.
be done.
And you
Yep.
know it's going to get done, right?
You know it.
And it seems like people like working with her, like on the real estate agent end, which is kind of important too, right? Because you like working with people you like
Well, I
working
had I
with.
had 15 agents I was working with last night, Daryl. 15
Whoa!
offers.
There you go.
I'm not here to
15 offers on one house.
on one house.
And are we being
We
a
were
little,
attractively priced, but the
yeah?
last price was 1425. And it was
And
like not on a busy street, 300 square feet smaller,
yeah,
but better condition.
better condition.
Yeah,
Okay.
so ours was a busy street. It was much older condition. And I was like, all right, let's price it at $125,000 less than the last sale and hope we end up somewhere around there.
So 1 3 and a
To
quarter
one four
ish.
to get we were at 1 3, hoping to get to 1 4 2 5.
And
In
where
my
did we
mind,
end up? Where did we end up?
1 5 8.
Whoa, what's going on? The market's back,
Okay, when you get
TK.
15 offers,
When I
people
talk
were
to you,
just 50 grand, 50 grand, chips all in. What do I like? That's what it
wow,
was. It was no
this is
longer, no one was saying, well, the
where?
last one sold for. Everyone was just saying, how much more do I need to go up in order to get it? That's what was going on last night,
Where
And
was
so
this? Where was this and what was this for? The price point's
it's
insane, but
a
I guess that's an
3,600 square
average.
foot 2-story home in the furthest eastern part of Scarborough. So one of the more affordable neighborhoods in all of the GTA.
What should the people do?
What?
Yeah, like, comment, subscribe. I'm double subscribed. Do it yourself. Didn't get to fix the show, though. Didn't get to fix the show.
1 5 is one of the most affordable areas in
One
the
of the
GTA.
lowest price per square foot neighborhoods in all the GTA. Yeah, like
Holy,
for
and
what you
what do you
get, lot
get?
size and everything there, like it's actually an affordable neighborhood.
And you said it was renovated or it needs work?
Needs work, like 1988 original,
Ooh, so is this a tear down bungalow? Is this going to be a
2-story 3,600 house.
right?
Yeah,
Okay,
nobody's
so
tearing it down, but
good bones, good bones,
great bones, great bones.
great bones. Well,
And
whoa,
so here's
congratulations.
first of all, okay, my seller goes missing on me the other day. He's
Oh
85
yeah,
years old.
give the backstory. This is
Okay,
so
he's
crazy. I
85
want to
years
hear
old.
it.
His wife passes away. He says to his wife, she was in the hospital for 6 weeks. She fell down the stairs and she was in the hospital for 6 weeks until she passed. So he spent a lot of time with her while she was in the hospital. And their agreement before she passed was he was going to take her remains to England, her ashes back home to England. Her family was there. They didn't have any kids. They didn't have any family here in Canada. And so I meet him and he's like, my wife passed a week ago and I need to sell the house. And I'm like, let's sit down and talk about this. And I went through all this. And at the end, after asking him questions like, do you know anybody? Have you been on a plane? What happens if they don't let you on the plane? What if this is not, they don't let you go through with the ashes? What happens if something else goes wrong? What's our backup plan? Because we're going to sell the house. This is like the easy part. It's like the other part is the hard part. He says, whether it's with you or someone else, I'm selling the house. I told my wife, this is what we're doing. I said, okay, then. So we're going to be on the market next week. So we listed it. Again, 1.3 under what the last sale had gone for because he wanted it quick. He also wanted all the stuff in the house included. He said, I don't want to take anything.
I don't want to deal with anything. Just
So
sell
how do you
this
get
thing.
that? You get leverage. You get make people say, TK, I'll shovel the driveway from now until closing. Like they'll start handing over things because they want to beat out the other buyers. So it was easy to get people to say, whatever he leaves be fine. Sell whatever he wants, throw it. Whatever's behind on closing, just leave it there. We'll dispose of it, keep it, whatever. Some stuff is good.
All right.
He gave me a
move
chess
on.
set, so I got a chess set for my son.
Let's go.
All right. So
what happens next?
he says, I'm only out for an hour a day. Now, we had an issue because someone left the key in the door. So he took the key out of the lockbox. He doesn't want people just to be able to walk into his house. So now there's no key in the lockbox. He's home for every showing. No problem.
Okay.
He says, the most I ever go out for is an hour. He knows about the showings. We call him. He confirms them. He knows about them. So this one day, we have 2 inspections and 3 showings all in one day. And the people are calling me saying, no one's at the door. There's no key. What's going on? The 10 o'clock, the 10:45, the 1 o'clock. I'm like, oh my gosh.
What time did we talk?
I'm not sure. But either way, we had confirmed the showings. He'd been there all the time. And I said, I got to get inside this house. So I called a locksmith because he's been gone now for 4 hours. He only used to go out for 1. He knew about the showings. I thought there's a chance maybe he didn't wake up that morning. I wasn't sure. Everybody was worried about him. Everybody was saying the same thing. It was not like him whatsoever. 3:30 comes around. It's now been 6 hours since we know that he was been home. For sure. Maybe
the
more.
locksmith is booked.
The locksmith
and
is
ready
coming.
To go.
The police didn't answer the phone. I called the thing. They didn't answer the phone. I was on the phone for half an hour. No one answered on that communications line. But anyways, long story short is he answered the phone.
Oh,
and I was like,
goodness.
oh, and he starts going. I said, it doesn't matter, Mr. Bell. I said,
thank God you're alive.
Nothing matters because he's all apologetic about missing the showings and all that.
What was he doing?
You're good. We're good. You got showings tonight. We got showings tomorrow. The offers are tomorrow.
What was
and
that
we were
guy
back
doing?
on track. And I thought, Jesus. So what a nice man. He, to get that price, to get that money, to get the short closing. Hopefully he's in England by that time and he's a happy man.
So that's his house there, the multiple offers.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So he's happy as hell.
Two stories in one.
To see that.
Yeah.
Wow. So I mean, obviously that's where the brain goes right away, right? Because I mean,
at least my brain does. I mean,
listen, mine did too. When you called me, I knew where you were heading with that. And it's like, it's a tough decision. What do you do? What do you do?
Well,
I got to want to deal with that, right?
I got a follow-up story from the last story of the last show.
Well, hold on a sec. This is a perfect time before you ramble on for a few more minutes there, TK.
I'm ready to ramble.
Right? We've got a great guest today, right?
Yeah.
Mark Morris, one of our favorite guests in the world.
One of our top most viewed episodes is his.
We do this for the subs and the likes and the comments, right?
I'd like to talk to Mark. I don't know. Speak for yourself.
Well, but I'm just saying in general, we do the show. So fucking hit the subscription button is what I'm getting at, TK.
Oh, guys, subscribe to Dumb and Dumber.
That's right.
We're just looking for you to subscribe to our show about nothing. This is a show about nothing.
It's like the Seinfeld of real estate podcasts, TK.
Yeah, a podcast, period.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to get that in because I don't know how much longer we're going to keep Mark waiting while you tell us this next story. But go.
Well, it doesn't sound like you want to hear it, so
let's
just
skip
the story.
To be honest with you, but maybe somebody does because a lot of people love you, TK.
Let's skip it. Don't worry.
We got a couple more minutes.
We'll have a cliffhanger, and now everyone will say, "Geez, Daryl, why don't you let TK tell his stories?" No, I'm not going to tell it now. I don't even want to tell it anymore
because he never talks
anymore. I don't want to tell it anymore.
Well, so you go be a little sucky baby in the corner. I'm going to bring Mark Morris on the show.
I'm taking my ball and I'm going home.
You go home. Did you just flip the chess table that you were going to talk about chess? You got a free chessboard. Now you just flip the table.
I didn't say it was free. I paid for it.
Oh, you paid for it? That's nice of you. It should have been free. I knew he was going to wear the jacket and I was going to have the jacket ready.
Canadian real estate show than us today.
Where are your jackets, guys?
Where are the jackets? We got the good
You like that
now.
play, eh?
I mean, what the hell? Like
it's
now,
2025, Mark.
Imagine how I feel right now.
Imagine how you feel. The honorary Beatle, Mark Morris.
Oh my gosh.
I even have the friggin' t-shirt, which by the way is a size too small, which is a huge indictment on me because it's an extra large. So, but
maybe you were a size too big, Mark.
That's the problem, actually.
now we know you haven't been watching the last few episodes because you would have known we haven't had the jackets on in 2025.
You know what the problem is? The problem is that I followed the show so avidly that I was going back in time and just rewatching the previous episodes.
That's right.
I just haven't gotten around to it.
Obviously.
Yeah.
I mean,
There's a
do that?
BS meter going on going off somewhere.
No, not from the
Guys, I'm a
lawyer.
lawyer. I have to make
Yeah.
something up on the spot. Otherwise, what
Yeah.
are people paying me for?
That's
Good
it.
for
Well,
you.
welcome back, sir. We haven't talked to you for a little while. Actually, we've had you on the show, but we didn't really talk to you. That was kind of
listen, it's great to be back, guys. And, it's an interesting time to be in freaking real estate in Ontario because,
What's happening?
I don't know. Like in some ways it's great out there, and in other ways it's devastating out there. It's the weirdest thing. Like our office is busier than we've been in ages. Like the number of deals that are coming in. January was actually really strong. A lot of deals, a lot of really good Class A deals. Like, those people who aren't selling because they need to, they've chosen to sell, they've gotten good prices for their property, like all that stuff, like just reminding you of the good times. And then you have the tears. You just have the endless tears of those people who are being forced to close on 1,600 a square when the market has now fallen to 900, right? I mean, like
where's that happening?
Well, that's new build, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
is it that low?
Yeah, it's like 900 to 1,000 a square is
This is for an assignment, because no one's launching at that, right? These are all
that's the appraised value now at closing.
Oh, these are closings that are coming up, right? Oh, fuck, that's a huge gap. Oh,
it's a huge gap. And when you have an appraised gap of that, the problem is that the assignment market just doesn't make up the difference, right? You have 20% down, you're screwed. So, a lot of my conversations are like the normal happy stuff. The firm is doing great, everything's fine. And then, you have to interspace that with a bunch of people who are sitting there in tears going, what the hell do I do? And of course, these people, they've invested in more than one and they've all signed up their family members and it's bad. So, things kind of continue apace, but if I'm to be blunt about things, the good outweigh the bad. I'm sorry, I know negative gets more traction on social media than positive, but sometimes, the good outweighs the bad. Like the truth is the market stability has returned. There's normalcy. It's not that people are buying anymore with the expectation of becoming millionaires overnight. I mean, you want to do that, do Bitcoin. Right now, there's normalcy and it's nice. One thing that's really nice is, like cash is king again, which matters, right? Like pro formas matter and investors are looking at deals. They're still not buying in. Like the big investment dollars are still saying we're holding off, but they're at least, again, using cash flow tables that make sense where they're not like, if I don't buy this now, someone else is going to scoop me. So that's nice.
Wow, I wasn't expecting that because normally you are not very positive.
We haven't had him on.
And
we haven't had him on for a little while.
Yeah. Well, so before you came on, TK just told us about his 15 offer situation last night. So that coupled with what you're saying, I feel comfortable saying that the good times are back again in real estate.
Buy, because
I'm wearing the wrong
it's going to be more. Yeah, 100%.
Look, last year we had the same thing in January, and then February, more listings. Sellers got the word, the market's back. Everyone started listing again. Buyers looked around. They said, well, I got lots more options right now. Maybe I don't need to act too quickly. Make real estate great again. I love it. These are the sentiments.
Available in the merch store.
We could just be in an early spring market again. But you know what? Stability is good. And I love to hear what you're saying there. You said, hold on, let me finish, Joe. Let me finish. The buyers aren't buying properties expecting to make millions of dollars overnight. That is a huge change in what they that's what we need.
Yeah, so the grown-ups are back. The grown-ups are back. Like real estate grown-ups are back. Those people who were overextended, they're losing their shit. The people who are crying in my office are the people who never understood the fundamentals anyways, and were there in a bubble economy. The people who are now crawling the streets are either true end users who, based on family dynamics, require property, or investors that understand pro formas. They're being much more judicious and much more analytical. And there's an understanding that, interest rates are not going to be a panacea. And what's more, if Trump has his way, we're probably going to see maybe even heightened interest. Like interest rates are not necessarily guaranteed to go down anymore, given what's happening south of us. People are being cautious, and that caution is something that I welcome. You should welcome. Frankly, it brings some rationality back to the market and allows proper investment analysis to be done.
Mm-hmm. I heard that the big argument right now for interest rates to come down is that if the tariffs are going to be implemented, then the Bank of Canada is going to want to drop the value of the Canadian dollar so that Canadian goods will be a discount. And that tariff, which is a huge part of our, from the US, is a huge part of our exports. I don't know what it is, 60, 70, 80% of what we export goes to the US. They would still be willing to buy our products because Canadian dollar would be less valued and the tariffs won't be as much of an impact.
You know, the fun part about being in real estate is that you're asked to speak about a bunch of stuff and half the stuff you don't know about. And definitely how 25% tariffs are going to interrelate to our interest rate given a crashing real estate market. And at the same time, like it's so far beyond all of our bailiwicks at this point. Like I get it. I get it. What you said made sense there.
It was David Rosenberg who said it. But I mean, like, again, this is just like speculation.
I don't know what's going to happen, but what I do know is that things are in flux in a big way. Like there are changes afoot that will have effect, and what that effect is, I don't know. But you know, there's other features. Like, you know, people say like, oh, the Canadian dollar is so weak. Well, no, it actually isn't. I mean, relative to our peers, everyone except the United States, our dollar's doing exactly what it always does relative to Australia, relative to New Zealand, relative to Europe, relative to the United States. Every single one of these currencies has plummeted. Globally, we are exactly where we need to be vis-a-vis our peers. The problem is that over the past couple of years, the American economy has skyrocketed. It has been on fire, and it is doing way, 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 way better than its peers. And because of that, that market heft is now affecting us as it is every other Western democracy that exists. And then Japan, Korea, everyone relative to the American dollar is faltering. But, you know, we happen to sleep next to that giant, and it affects us disproportionately. And what now happens, given that that giant has woken up and has its eye trained on Canada and saying we're coming for you? I don't know, man. We're gonna see. This is all going to be a civics lesson for all of us.
So those units that you were talking about that were purchased at 1,600 and now appraising at 1,900, how many of those are still closing versus just walking away or whatever the alternative is at the moment?
That's an excellent question. And, you know, it's the question that I think a lot of builders don't want asked, or at least they don't want people to think that there is a problem that is substantive enough that it starts affecting their bottom line. I was just having dinner with, this isn't a direct answer, but it is an answer. I was just having dinner with a bunch of people who are fairly prominent in real estate, many of the names you would know. And we were all having a discussion that the next thing that happens that will be substantive to our industry is when a builder fails to have enough closings at a building such that it can actually have a turnover to its owners. And the general consensus was that as we approach 2027 being the year when we're finishing off the height of the bubble, 2022 purchases finishing in 2027, the general consensus was that as we approach 2027, that's going to happen. And whether it happens this year or next, most people were kind of weighing towards fall of this year, seeing that happen for the first time. What that means in a macro sense and in an answer to your question is it's definitely happening, and it's happening with greater and greater frequency. I see it happening. The amount of default letters that are being thrown to my office are now up significantly. When I say significantly, remember, it's starting from a base of pretty much zero. So significantly within reason, but it is the case that quite a few people are defaulting is now seen as an option. Whereas before, for many years, defaulting was absolutely not something you do. Now it is understood by the buying public that walking away and facing a lawsuit is actually an option that isn't born only of desperation, but is also born of choice.
Strategy. Yeah.
It's a strategy. Yeah. So, and that's partially because lawyers like myself and others, basically when someone says, hey, I want to breach an agreement, can I give you the talk that I give in my office? The talk goes like this. It goes, look, it's not illegal to breach an agreement. You're allowed to breach an agreement. It's illegal to drive 101 kilometers down the highway. But it's not illegal to breach an agreement. There's consequences, and those consequences are financial damage. So given that you're going to experience financial damage, period, because that effectively took place when you signed your agreement of purchase and sale at $1,600 a square, and it's now $900. And all we're talking about is how to crystallize that damage. Let's take a look at what it looks like to close the deal versus breach the agreement. If you close the agreement, well, you're going to have to pay land transfer tax. You're going to have to pay your adjustment fees. You're going to have to pay your private mortgage where you hold on for 6 months. You're going to have to pay your commissions of 5% when you sell your property, all of which you may very well be able to avoid. Certainly some of those, the adjustments, the land transfer tax, and others, you'll be able to avoid if, in fact, you breach. Now, the deposit that you have is, of course, going to go towards those damages in any event. And so now let's do it a pro forma where we take a look at this, reasonably assume what the actual net price of the property is, and now you can make a business decision as to whether or not to go away. And the moment that you start structuring it that way, and more lawyers and other financial advisors are talking this way, it doesn't become, oh God, I need to go through with this at all costs. I need to remortgage my houses. Instead, it's, okay, I understand what the litigation risk is. I understand that this is the way it will play out. I understand that I might be able to effect a settlement. I can probably challenge the damage claim that they're going to put in. And if I can actually make enough of a muss of it in court, they may have the obligation to settle. And at the end of the day, it's going to net me more to ultimately breach this agreement. I will have netted more if I breach this agreement than ultimately if I closed on this agreement. And then I'm in hock to the banks who will for sure sue me. And so that sort of analysis goes on at our office every single day. And because more and more of those discussions are taking place and it's becoming a bit more socially acceptable to do this, we're entering into a new mental framework for purchasers in Ontario.
That's not good. Yeah.
Well, no, I think that's great advice. I think that's why you're a leading, voice in the legal world in Toronto, right? Is because these type of things, how many guys who've been sitting behind their desk for 30 years are going to give that advice? They all beat the same drum.
That's not YTK. It's because every single day I wear this undersized shirt and this red jacket, and they're like,
I'm telling you, the guys who are out there who've been doing law forever don't know how to be able to get out of these deals, and they just tell their clients, figure it out. They're running little paper mills trying to get legal closings done without actually even knowing who their clients are. And you got a good strategy here to be able to actually save people money.
But like some of these deposits are pretty substantial that you're walking away from. Like if you're paying $1,600 a foot,
the stress of a private mortgage and to be going into this situation and having to deal with this is going to take years off your life. You won't be able to work. It's not worth it.
How long?
Darryl, it doesn't matter if they're substantive, because if they're substantive enough such that if you subtract the deposit, they're at market value, then they'll close. The people who are making these decisions, no matter how substantive their deposit, they're still underwater. So they're making these decisions because the deposit itself, which is a guaranteed loss no matter what happens if they walk, is not sufficient in every instance. So just as an aside. But TK, can I get back to your point and just rip on my profession for a second? Because I actually want to tell you one of the reasons that lawyers suck. And you'll excuse me for the lawyers that are listening to this, but there's a reason. Lawyers are encouraged throughout their career. In fact, the very people who go into law school are encouraged to avoid risk. After all, they've been told by their parents that being a lawyer is a good way to make a profession and that ultimately they'll have a happy life and everything else. They're naturally predisposed to not taking risks. Going this way is security and everything else. But then they go to law school, they're trained to examine risk. And then they also have the problem of authoritative voice. They learn to speak very much like I'm speaking right now, just kind of with an authoritative voice. Just, I know what I'm talking about, even if they don't, even if it's total BS, they have that. Mm-hmm. And so what happens is they present risk and downside, which is their job. But what so many lawyers fail to do, and this is really where I criticize them, is to explain to clients that while their job is important, there is another side to the equation, because risk is downside, but there's upside benefits. Usually that's actually what the realtor is actually promoting, the upside benefits. You come to the lawyer, there's the downside risks. And the whole idea is to have a lawyer that is able to contextualize risk whilst explaining that all of that contextualization has to be balanced as against the upside benefit. And it's incumbent upon the lawyer to not say, you listen to me with my authoritative voice because I am telling you the be all and end all, because they're only saying one half of the story. After all, lawyers don't know the value of property. They've never been on the side of a deal that ultimately is the upside. They're always sitting there going, well, this is what can happen. Let me examine title. Let me figure out this problem, whatever it is, instead of, hey, you can probably sell this in a year and make $100,000. That doesn't enter into their equation. And in the absence of that, you can't quantify risk, because risk has to be measured against reward. And so a good lawyer and a good real estate agent is able to say to the client, listen, I'm this role, they're this role. You have to be the party who actually melds the two pieces of advice. And the lawyer has to be non-obstinate enough to understand their role in this, such that when they give that advice, they say, now listen, there's an upside here. I'm here to explain the downside. You, the client, go ahead and figure this out, and we will support you in your decision with all the information at hand.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's exactly what I've heard from every single time. I mean, I guess it's just the majority of lawyers, because a client comes back and the advice is just like, they've never even thought about, you know, how this could benefit you as an investment. They've never thought about how, you know, maybe that person won't, you know, use litigation, you know, in this type of situation. They've never thought about the whole negotiations of a deal here, where maybe we need to threaten to say we're willing to go to litigation in order to be able to get the deal done. It's always just very, hard nosed, follow the rules, don't breach the contract, make sure you do exactly what you say you're going to do. And that's what the client comes to me with. And then we have to sometimes unpackage that a little bit.
And you have to unwind it. You have to unwind all of that to say, okay, but let's remember the benefits.
Yes.
And that's fundamentally, that's the curse of kind of being a lawyer. It's that you're often acting as an anchor on a deal.
Not an anchor. You're a deal killer. Lawyers are known, especially, like, I don't know so much about residential houses, but when you're doing land and assemblies and the lawyers get involved, I mean, it's like any lawyer, even if the best lawyer in the world prepared the agreement already, and it's been through like 18 of the best lawyers over the last 10 years, the next lawyer will do something to change something to earn the money that they're going to charge you for the time they took to read the agreement, right? I'm not kidding. How many times, TK, do you have to unwind some stupid thing that a lawyer added into this thing that is so unnecessary, so out of context, will piss off the other side and really...
I put a deal together on the front porch one time. Next door neighbors. Neighbor sends me over, put the whole deal together on the front porch. We got a deal. Go back to them and I say, well, you know, this is the fee in order for me to facilitate this transaction. What? You're going to charge me? Da, da, da. They went on and on and on. So I said, okay. I said, like, I understand you can go to the lawyers. Go to the lawyers. You don't need me. You guys will figure this out amongst yourself. It's downtown in Cabbagetown. And I just heard like last week that the deal got killed and that now the sellers want more money and that the lawyers never got it happen. Like, it was just... I had the whole, like, everything was done. It was simple. There was like 5 terms we needed to talk about, and then we had it all agreed to on the front porch. But when it went to the lawyers, and now there's no longer the intermediary who's got something to gain. You know, I got a commission to earn, so I got something to gain to be able to go back from one side to the next in order to be able to do it. That lawyer gets paid per hour. So he's just going to say, well, this is what you should be asking for because it's your right. And this is what you should be asking for because it's your right. And there's no
you have for lunch today?
Cooperation in, like, how do we make both sides happy? So... anyways, that's why I still have a job. So, Mark, you're not getting all the defaults. You're only getting the ones who maybe plan on defaulting or want to try to close. There's probably a whole bunch of people who are avoiding this altogether and just dealing directly with the builder and not even having a lawyer represent them.
Yeah.
No?
Well, I mean, to yes and no to a degree. Because the builder doesn't actually want to. So if you're talking about new build residential construction, the builder doesn't actually want to deal with people. And because most people didn't enter into these contracts thinking they were going to breach, most of them went to a lawyer during the 10-day period. Most of those lawyers wrote to the builder and said, hey, I'm the legal representative here, so communicate with me. The builder does have a lawyer on file generally for these instances. But you're right. There's a subset of people definitely that are not being captured that are dealing with the builder directly. And by the way, part of the advice that I give people is make sure you go to the builder and actually engage in discussions with them about the breach, because after all, builders are human, right? They're human beings, and they want to, and there is some sympathy that you can sometimes engender in an in-person meeting. Hey, Mr. Builder, I'm a Vietnam vet and a pack of wolves, carried my baby away down the river last night, and I don't have any money because I was robbed by 6 people while I was helping an elderly woman cross the street. You get the sob story.
You've used that one before.
Yeah, once. And
So
you get
weird
the
that
sob
happened
story
last
eventually.
night.
And hopefully the builder says, like, okay, you know what? Like, we have their deposit. It's pretty close. We're not going to sue this person. I remember this person. She cried in my office. The cayenne pepper was in her eyes, like whatever it is. And sometimes that works. So we do encourage that, because when a lawyer letter goes to another lawyer letter, it's often just fluffed off by the builder.
I had a client whose father passed. So one of them was bought 2 units, like you said, using family members' names. The father passed, so they gave back the deposit, but she was short on the other one, so they used that deposit for the second one shortfall. So it's not like she got much money back. What about power sales? I'm dealing with power sales more than I've ever dealt with in my career. So what about you?
Yeah, so power of sales are everywhere. Power of sales are a very serious factor. And may I share with you why that is, by the way? The power of sales don't stem from the same source of acute pain that we've just talked about in the new build space. It's not because people overinvested in new builds or anything else. It's because people have been living beyond their means for 10 years. It's because our Canadian incomes are so pathetically light as compared to our American colleagues. Like Ontario's, I don't know if you saw these stats, but Ontario's income is, if you ranked it as a state, it's above Missouri, and I think that's it. Right? Like in terms of what our citizens earn. We don't earn a lot. And we have lived extravagant lifestyles for the past 10 years because of our real estate bubble, because almost everyone was able to tap equity in their home and take it out. And that game stopped in 2022. And when it stopped, people had some fumes, but the fumes have ended. And now what's happened is, the property values haven't increased. In some cases, they've declined. And people cannot afford their ongoing monthlies because the way they were affording it was through massive refinancing. So the power of sales...
All mine are like that.
Yeah.
None of them are 2022 buyers. They all bought the property years ago.
But they used the property over the course like an ATM, which so many people did. And the only way that they could continue to do that was by borrowing more. And that's the source of the power of sales that we are seeing that are becoming endemic. It is really actually something. Now, power of sales, I'm seeing so much work in it, not only for realtors, but also for, not only for sellers, but also for litigators who are watching realtors screw up every minute of the day, because so many realtors are used to not even doing a title search when they bring an offer or when they sell a property. They're not looking at how much is actually extended in loans, which, by the way, every realtor needs to do as the basic standard of competence. And as a result, oftentimes you're finding these people selling properties where the amount owing to the lenders is actually more than the amount that has been done. We've had endless files in our office where listing agents proudly present us with an agreement of purchase and sale where the actual amount is not sufficient to pay off the mortgages. Forget about the commissions.
Amateur hour.
So I've actually been going around to all the brokerages in the city and giving talks as to how to actually do this when ultimately you're engineering a short sale.
Yep.
So yeah, that is something that we're seeing across, and that is just becoming a feature of Ontario.
How are the lenders responding? So I have everything from one guy, because he was delinquent often, they gave him, after 2 months of arrears, they had the writ of possession signed. Another guy, he has 11 months from home trust behind, but because he's got equity, they're like, they keep extending it because he's got so much equity, and then they hired us to get it sold. So what are you seeing? Like, are you seeing generosity from the lenders, strict adherence to their rights? Or
usually if there's a buyer, if there's an owner who's communicating with a lender and there's sufficient equity in the property, you'll find that the lenders have some heart and they'll give you a couple of extra months here or there. That's not something that is uncommon, but it is uncommon to have people who are communicating directly with the lender by the time things hit a power of sale situation. The truth is 97% of people are at that point ducking and covering, which I don't know why that's a good option, but that's what most people do. They're just like, all right, I'm just not going to talk about this. I know there's nothing I can do.
Mhm.
And at that point, the process is engineered to be pretty fluid, and you name it. I'm seeing a lot of secondary lenders lose their shirt. A lot of people who were in the secondary lending space didn't know what the. You swear on this show all the time. What the hell? I remember from the previous instances that I was watching in the past, right? So, they don't know what the fuck they're doing at all. Like they've lent at values that were 90% LTV at height, right? So like they're underwater by 100,000. I've seen lenders underwater at $200,000. And those people have a reckoning as much as buyers have a reckoning. Bad lends are being called, and it is painful for those people for sure. If you don't know how to deal with a secondary lender forcing them to take a haircut, you sure as heck better pair up with someone who does, because it's going to be a piece of your knowledge base that you're going to need in the coming years, as we certainly in the next couple of years. I don't see this abating.
Can you expand on that? So the people who are bringing you these deals, where the people are underwater, they owe more than what they sold it for. What are those most likely that would be a secondary lender situation? Are the lenders taking a haircut?
So,
what have you negotiated?
Well, let me explain why they take a haircut first. Let me explain how the process works. Okay. So let's say that there's $1 million of mortgages that are extended against the property, and you sell a property for, say, $900,000. The first mortgage is for $800,000. The second mortgage is for $200,000. That's the scenario we're going to talk about. Okay. You hire a realtor. The realtor is stupid enough well, let's say the realtor isn't stupid. The realtor puts it on the market at 1.1, gets their offer at market price at $900,000. Okay. The realtor, not being stupid, does not accept the agreement. Because if the realtor accepts the agreement, it's a firm and binding agreement. Let me tell you what's going to happen. And then I'll talk about what happens if the realtor does their job properly. If the realtor accepts the agreement, just plain out, without having done any of the preliminary research and understanding what the mortgages are that are on title and everything else, you go to the secondary lender and you say, secondary lender, here's an offer. Please take your haircut. And then the secondary lender says, well, yeah, that's what the market price is. And yeah, I have to take my haircut. But there's this juicy commission of $50,000 due and owing to the agents that is currently sitting in TK's trust account. And I'm aware of what RICO rule says. And what RICO rule says is that if there is an agreement between the seller and the buyer to remove that commission and put it into a lawyer's trust account, the brokerage has to oblige. So I am going to say yes to this agreement. I will provide a discharge statement for my mortgage with my haircut, but I sure as shit ain't taking that haircut without that commission paid to me. The agents themselves can go seek their own compensation from these people. P.S. They'll never see a dime because these people don't have a pot to piss in. Now let's take an agent that actually knows what they're doing. An agent that actually knows what they're doing gets an irrevocable of 72 hours on this offer, then provides it to the secondary lender with the names crossed out, because you don't want the secondary lender to steal this, provides it to the secondary lender through a lawyer that knows what they're doing or anything else, and says, hey, you're screwed. You made a bad lend, and we'll get you out of this situation. And we have market value for this property. Take this offer and pay our agents their commission, and we will sign this back and go firm. Because if you don't, secondary lender, you know that this property is underwater and that this seller is having trouble. And the first lender will eventually end up in a power of sale position themselves. And when they do, they are going to appoint their own realtor, who will then eat 5% anyways. It will take much longer to sell this property. And all of that is eating into the available equity because the price of this property ain't going up. And the secondary lender, once that's explained, then says, yes, this is the best deal on the table. Okay, agents, will protect your commission. Let's go. And that's the way this actually has to go. And so we spent a good deal of time in our office doing this.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. So now the agent didn't do that. Okay, are you seeing those secondary lenders get the commission removed from the trust accounts?
I've acted for them many times. Like I'm communicated with by secondary lenders who are like, what the hell do we do? And I'm like, all right, well, we have this commission that we can seize because this agent's an idiot. So let's go.
I had that happen to me in like my second.
Someone I deal with, and then we do it.
My second year of real estate, I brought the buyer. It was a power sale, and they were going power sale, and so they owed a certain amount of money. And I remember the agent to this day who did that to me, because they took part of our commission. I got,
Right.
at that time it was a $200,000 house, and I was supposed to get paid 5,000, and instead I got paid 3. You know what I mean? Like, this is like the life ending for a 23-year-old, 22-year-old kid.
Right, of course.
And I always held that grudge. I was like, I'll never show his listings again. That guy doesn't know what he's doing, So you always got to be careful with that kind of stuff, right? But
Totally.
I'm dealing with it more than I've ever dealt with it before, and thankfully my guys got equity. But like some of them that I have listed right now, the question is, do they have equity? We're listed at a price that they have equity in, but until we actually get the offer,
right? Until you know what the market value is, that's the thing,
right?
Because the market values have fallen on some of these things so much that until there is actual market analysis and proof that it's worth this, it's a shit show. It's a shit game.
Yeah.
Darryl,
do you have anything to add to that?
Oh, thank you. Thank you, TK. I appreciate. Holy fuck.
All the comments are always talking about me and Darryl talking over each other. So I'm giving them the gears today, Mark.
He's giving me the gears. Watch back. I haven't talked for like half an hour. Anyways, listen, I'm hearing like mixed signals here, right? Because we start the show talking to TK, who's talking about multiple offer situations, okay? And not the first time. He started the show last week talking about multiple offer situations, okay? Then you come on the show and you're talking, people are being smart and deals are happening and volume is there. And you even said investors were looking at things and maybe intimated that they were buying some things that actually pro forma'd out. And then all of a sudden we're talking about, condos who are just so completely like, can you fucking 1,600 to 900? Like, that is such a fucking whooping and so painful. I can't even imagine what that would be like to consider closing, for God's sakes. Like, where closing's the better option in that case. But regardless, there seems to be all kinds of markets going on, right? So there's no one thing happening right now. Do we have desirable product out there that's going for good prices? I think so, right? Like, do we have people that are losing their shirts? I think so. Do we have people that are like, do we have buildings that are about to not be able to close because there's just way too many in that big a spread? I mean, fuck, what we got to do to avoid that? Because that there is peak mayhem, right? That's when all hell starts breaking loose. When somebody goes, we don't have enough people to actually close this building here, and we can't dump the units either, and we can't keep paying our mortgage, right?
Right.
So
doesn't this seem though, Darryl, like a more you've been around, I've been around, we're the same age. Doesn't this seem like a more normalized market? There's pockets of pain, there's pockets of growth, there's investors that are seeking out, like we had such an abnormal market for 7 years where there was nothing but invest in anything. A landfill, just go, whatever it is, you'll make your money. This conversation where, hey, there's some investors here. Hey, someone's losing their shirt. Hey, there's some power of sale opportunities here. Hey, like this to me, because I've been around for 25 years, seems much more like what I am familiar with dating back to pre-2012, 2013. Does that not feel like that to you?
Well, so I always have said that, the lineups down the street and selling out a 450 unit building in a weekend is just not realistic. And we talk about it all the time that, like, if you look at even New York or like any other desirable city on earth, this does not happen. We somehow in Toronto or Canada have hit this peak marketing ability where somehow we as a collective have just really just kept inflating this bubble. And I mean, you make a great point at the beginning where it's like, well, nobody makes any fucking money unless they either sell their house or, refinance their house here in Canada, right? Because our wages are like, you got to be in the South Mississippi and you're still making more than us here in Canada, right? So like we've got this beautiful, perfect storm with all these willing components and proponents to really fuck this thing up. And then so my last kind of question with this is, okay, obviously there's different markets everywhere, but now in the sub market that is a disaster bomb, the condo market in downtown Toronto, do any of these people, somebody valued this shit at 1600 or close to it at some point? Like, is anybody able to be held accountable for such a drastic swing? Okay, because we're not talking 16 to 13, right? We're talking almost half.
So if you're asking, is anyone able to be held accountable? The answer is yes, because I think I could point my finger at one of the major culprits right now, and it's going to be the government. The fucking municipal governments took advantage of the bubble in a way that was more of a drug pusher than anyone else on the planet. They increased development fees knowing that there was no repercussion when people were irrationally exuberant. And when I say increase, I don't mean a minor increase. I mean 100% increases in development fees to a point where they made these projects totally unpalatable, and the taxes are killer. So if you're asking who can you point, find John Tory, kick him in the nuts. He's the one who did this, in addition to a whole bunch of other government officials. And yeah, you can hold them accountable because directly the cost of construction is artificially been inflated massively over the course of years. And kudos to the mayor of Vaughan, by the way, for starting to reverse that trend, reducing development fees in half. Hopefully other municipalities follow, because we can't pencil a damn project. I mean, you know this. I'm preaching to the choir. You know what it's like to try to pencil these projects. You're doing it in Forest Hill. Different analysis, but good luck.
I was going to say, yeah, I'm a little different because my projects are
right. I understand that, but assuming that you're going for the mass middle, good luck to you. And that if you want to know who, it's the government. Like it is the government and taxes and everything else. Having said that, outside of that, no, there's probably no accountability. I mean, the market is the market. People are allowed to lose their shirts, and that's the way it is. That's the way bubbles work.
I've always believed in and taught since I was a kid, you get out what you put in, And so when you can just go to a sales center and be on some worksheet and you're an agent and you just collected like a driver's license and you can make all this money and you're a buyer and you can
three choices.
Okay, like that to me, unfortunately, is not sustainable. But when you got to line up for 3 weeks outside that development sales center and hope you're in the right line, and that you got a tent and you got a chair and you're getting hot chocolate delivered to you in the middle of the winter, you earn the right to get that unit. We should eliminate the VIP agent status, make people who really are real investors do what they need to do to get into those units when they do start coming back again. There is a whole lot of extra fat on that $1,600 per square foot that can be trimmed back, and to be able to get these units a little bit cheaper when the market comes back and buyers are interested again.
You know what we should do? We should actually care about the fact that every single dollar that goes into real estate as an investment, there's a reason it's called passive investment. There's a reason it's called passive investing. Look at when you go to the States, are you guys not enthralled when you go to Texas and you kind of feel the energy that's down there, when you see the innovation, when the people who are walking the streets of New York are sitting there doing things, and then you come back to Canada. I'm not trying to be down in this country. I love this country dearly, but you come back here and everyone's invested in real estate. Like that's it. We spend our capital, we spend our resources chasing homes, not chasing innovation. And one of the things we should be thinking about just on a macro level is it good for us, for our children, to have an economy where someone can go ahead and make more money than me building a firm of 72 full-time employees by investing in a condo and doing nothing except selling? Like there is something fundamentally not only corrupt but corrosive to our general performance as a country. And I think it explains a lot of the malaise that we're currently seeing in our economy. I think
it's not even a sale, though. It's not a sale. It's an assignment. That's the real root of the problem. As soon as you didn't have to close that thing, the whole game changed, right?
But even if you were just closing, like The fact that we're devoting all of our available resources to a builder to
Sure.
put up a skyscraper, as opposed to building the next Meta, as opposed to building innovation. There are companies that come out of Canada that are wildly innovative. And by the way, that's been true through our history. Like, Canadians are terrible at remembering their history, but do you guys remember Massey Ferguson? We friggin' led the world in terms of industry and farm industry at the turn of the century. You know, we've done it again in medicines in the 1930s. We did it again during World War II. We became an economic powerhouse with regards to industry, of all things. Industry.
We should be.
Then we became a powerhouse with regards to raw minerals. Like, we've done this over and over and over again as Canadians, and instead we have had a lost 2 decades where instead of building out an industry, we've built out an investment class that doesn't have any larger ramifications and doesn't provide for long-term opportunities for our kids. And I bring this up, TK, simply because if we're to really identify where we should be going with this, we should be thinking about the larger picture and understanding that Canadians can be innovative, direct, and world leading if given the opportunity. And what we have done in the past 20 years is we have sucked that innovation straight into a condo window. And that sucks.
And it's necessary, unfortunately, for the people who are suffering, obviously, but the tone of the young Gen Zs now, and their dreams are a little lofty on how much they're going to make, but none of them are thinking like how we used to. None of them are saying, oh, I got to buy a house. I got to buy a house. I got to get into real estate. They're thinking smart now. They're thinking like, how do I take my resources? How do I get online? How do I build skills? How do I, do things that are going to be able to get me where I want to go?
They have to, because Gen Z has been let down by the system. Like, there's no future for Gen Z at all.
Well, I think their future is going to be leading the next generation after them.
Yeah, agreed.
Because of the hopelessness that they're going to experience with real estate.
And so, not only real estate, but also their professional pursuits, also their educational costs, everything else that goes along with it.
They get screwed.
And you're right. What Gen Z is they're the vanguard of the bootstrap. They are the ones who are getting it in the nuts. Every one of us, I mean, I'm 50. We're fine. We're fine. Like, we've made it through. These guys here are getting it in the nuts. There's no opportunity for them. And they're learning the hard way that every single thing that their parents are telling them that they will do to make a successful life is the exact polar opposite. And they will impart that to their kids, which will actually restart the innovation engine.
But hold on. I know 50-year-olds that have, up until very recently, been either very wealthy and very well-to-do, or in the corporate ladder so high up that they were very comfortable with nothing to worry about, now start looking to sell their homes, sell their cottages, downsize their stores, downsize their cars, or start thinking things like, oh no, I'm replaceable, in the workplace, or maybe I'm going to get fired soon, or shit, if I don't get this line of credit, like, I can't keep this lifestyle up anymore because my wage hasn't gone up like expenses have gone up in the last 4 years. And now I'm up for fucking renewal.
Are you a real estate agent and you're looking to make a change anywhere in Ontario? Guess what? We're hiring. Franklin Associates, #1 team in the GTA for all RE/MAX teams, #1 team for all teams from all companies for number of units sold throughout Toronto. So if you're looking to make a change, best decision I ever made was to join Franklin Associates. Go to jointeamleo.com and we can set up a call.
Like, this is so real out there right now. It's not just that, yeah, you're 50, you're in the clear. Like Gen X, Gen Z, whatever, what are we, Gen X? Everybody's kind of, there's a lot of people that you never would have thought.
There's malaise everywhere, but it's acute. It's acute, Darryl, in the young, in the people starting out. They have no chance. Like, I grant you're right that we are all collectively becoming, I think we all feel it in our bones. Collectively, we're becoming poorer. But I don't think anyone feels that like the young generation. I think that opportunity has been ripped from them in a way that no one who's alive today has experienced when they were their age.
I remember that experiment where they put the rats in the water and then they let them basically go until exhaustion, and they figure out how long can they swim for. And after like 2 minutes, the rats give up and they pull them out to save their lives. So then they put the same rats back in and they start letting them swim around. And then the hope that the rat's going to get pulled out of the water again, it swims for like 3 hours. Even though it can only do 2 minutes before, because they were like, I'm going to die. This is hopeless. I can't get out of this basin. But when they got picked out the first time, they said, eventually someone's going to come and get me. I'll keep swimming. I'll keep swimming. And that's the hopelessness that the Gen Z people have right now, is like, why save money? Why plan for my future? Why go and get a good job? Why do any of these things? It's hopeless. And that is more impactful than anything else, right?
I agree.
Because
I
that's what's going to
totally-
take away from
totally
our
agree.
economy. You know?
But again, you know what? That also leads to a huge opportunity, right? Like this generation, in some ways, it's kind of good. Like we were all kind of suckered into this thing where, okay, everyone go into the towers and everyone live a big corporate life and whatever it is, and like live here there for 50 years, get a gold watch and die, right? There's more to life than that. There just is. And the truth is, people can now experience that, like, because there's no advantage to actually doing that and getting the gold watch. Good on you. They don't even give gold watches, by the way. I watched someone retire from Walmart and the senior staff. Once, it was the most pathetic thing I've ever seen. Literally, they gave their whole life. They gave them a book to choose from. They got a barbecue. It was, it was pathetic. But anyways, I hope he's not watching.
I doubt it. Better than
Probably is, because everybody watches the show.
everybody.
Right? What about the new CMHC insured mortgages up to 1.5 million? Have you had any of those deals yet?
Yeah, I've had a couple of those.
What's the buyer like? What's the kind of buyer that's doing that?
Actually, the first ones that I had were incredibly savvy. Incredibly savvy. They didn't need it. They were like, we can get it. And this is before, and they said something that was very wildly prophetic and incredibly bothersome.
Oh,
They
shit.
said, we're going to get on board now before this equalizes. By the way, they worked for the government. They knew this system. They said, we're going to get on board now before this equalizes into pricing. And ultimately it's a wash. And what they meant by that is it's all well and good to do this. It's going to give an artificial jaunt to people and allow them to buy new homes and everything else. But eventually it won't, because there's two factors to prices. One is interest rates and the other is pricing. And if you give more affordability to people in the form of cash flow availability, then they will simply bump up the prices. And these guys, being prudent and smart, basically said, well, okay, we're just going to buy now before this flows into higher prices, and we're good. I don't think it does shit on a stick, because to the extent that it helps people initially, it will do what CMHC always does, which is bump up the markets to untenable rates. If we did not have CMHC as a government institution at all, period, straight out, then we would probably all be seeing prices that are so well below where we are that the same people could probably afford them. I think personally, and I've written an article on this and I've published it in REM magazine, I personally think CMHC does nothing other than the couple of months when it actually announces things. I think it's all a wash. And I think that it's a huge disservice to Canadians at this point.
Yeah, I wonder how much is in those housing accelerator funds and all these other things that they're just sitting on, twiddling their thumbs, not knowing what they're doing. We got property taxes going back up, right?
Well,
So
I don't. Do you guys mind property taxes? Can I ask you this? Like
in Toronto, it's way cheaper than
of
everywhere
all the
else.
taxes that I pay, I'm enraged when I pay federal taxes.
Mhm.
I'm enraged when I pay provincial taxes. I kind of look at municipal and I'm like, well, fuck, like those are the services I actually use. And when I think about what I pay, I have an expensive home. I pay $10,000 a year. Like to some degree, I'm upset because I know that Olivia Chow is going to be wasting my money. Like, I just know she's going to take it. She might as well set it on fire. But conceptually, are you upset about paying municipal taxes the way you are federal?
Heck no.
No, but
me neither.
the point is at the very least, if my property taxes are going to increase 25% over 3 years, I expect at the very minimum that my services at least stay the same. Okay. They don't get worse. Okay. And so what we see, especially if you travel a little bit, that what we have here is not all that good at all. Right. And it's what we're used to. And it might be better than like all kinds of other places, but it's shit compared to what it used to be and what it should and could be based on listen, forget for 6% more over the last 3 years. I expect at least the same, if not more, but 25%. This is literally a raping. Can I say rape
can
on
I
this
share
show,
that story
TK?
with you now, Daryl? Now's the right time.
We'll check. We'll
Oh,
check
good.
with our
We're gonna
HR
check
staff.
with the editor and see if we
Yep.
can say the word rape on this show. Rape, TK. But that's seriously, that's a serious raping, 25% in 3 years. And that's not making it up, right? We had 7%, we had 9%, now we got another 7%. That's insanity. Even
Well,
if
it's insanity because they're doing nothing with the money. It's because they're lighting it on fire. I don't care that the municipality is taxing more. If we were to have a reduction in federal tax and put it into the municipal tax, I'd be perfectly fine with it. I just feel that they're setting it on fire. Can I give you a story that happened to me this week? I was telling Darryl offline that I had this story. I'm so enraged by it. It directly speaks to the problem that we're talking about. So I won a court judgment. I don't want to talk about what it is right now because I'm using it for financial gain. But I won a court judgment against the city of Toronto. Moreover, I went to the Court of Appeal because the city of Toronto really didn't like this judgment. And I went to the Court of Appeal on it. And I won. And the city of Toronto now has to produce an incredibly valuable list of information for me. Okay? By law. We have discussed it. They have disagreed. We have gotten judicial orders. They now need to provide it. Simple. Easy. So the city of Toronto gets back to me. This was done through an FOI request. The city of Toronto gets back to me and says, get this, because I'm asking for a simple list that they should have available. They got back to me and they said, Mark, we'll give you this list, but in our estimation, it's going to take 600 man hours of city time, and it's going to cost you $7,500 to get. And because that's the maximum that they can charge. I said, okay, this list is incredibly valuable. No one gives a crap about your $7,500. You think that's going to dissuade? It's not going to dissuade anyone. I said, but I need continual access to this list. So I'm going to have to make this particular inquiry every 2 weeks. I don't know, every 3 weeks. And every single time, it's going to take the city of Toronto 600 man hours to produce this list that, again, should just be push print. So here's where the frustrating part is, and here's why it's frustrating that we pay taxes. So I got in touch with my local councillor, and I shot them over a copy of my Court of Appeal judgment. And I said, hey, Mr. Councillor, who represents me, I'm about to put the city through an enormous amount of pain where hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of man hours are going to be devoted to pushing print, to something where you should be pushing print on a machine. And given that you have no option but to provide this isn't something where we're going to be nice to one another. The courts have already ordered this. Can we perhaps sit down and talk about a better way of doing this to save you and everyone else this time? And so I waited 3 weeks for the city councillor to arrive. And when the meeting happened, the city councillor did not arrive. Instead, I got his chief of staff. He was a prominent city councillor. I got his chief of staff, who announced to me that because this matter is before the courts, the councillor could not meet with me. P.S. This has gone through the Court of Appeal. There's no further appeal. We're done. And then I had to explain to him over an hour and a half in duration that what would eventually happen if they did not listen to me and set up the appropriate meetings was that I would be making requests every single week, taking up 600 man hours of the city of Toronto's time. And at the end of the meeting, I got nowhere. Nowhere. They agreed to put me in touch with a finance official or something when I needed a political appointment. I then turned to Mayor Chow and I submitted a copy of my Court of Appeal, my Court of Flippin' Appeal judgment to Mayor Chow's office. I have done so now 3 times over the past 3 weeks, and no one has gotten back to me. So, Darryl, if you want to talk about why it is that it's infuriating that the taxes go up, it's not because conceptually people are fine not paying. Like, paying more municipal tax is fine. It's because that's the level of service we're dealing with. Like, that is insane.
Yep.
It's beyond insane. I mean, if you need some help, I mean, I've been known to be able to zone properties in the middle of, Forest Hill in 6 months. So, if you need a little help getting to who you need to get to, at the city,
Yeah.
I might know a couple of things. That's all I'm saying, TK.
We'll talk
It just sounds like it's they're telling you it's going to be 600 man hours because they really just don't want to provide this information. Whatever it is, it's cumbersome, right?
and they
To be able to
screwed up.
gather.
Because they think
that's definitely a component.
They
Yeah.
they think $7,500 each 2 weeks for Mark is going to be a big deal. Mark's like, fuck you. I'm going to just pay this. Even if I can't afford it, I'm paying $7,500 every 2 weeks to fuck
I'm
around with
mortgaging
you.
my house to spite you.
Despite you bastards, right?
Well, so we have a guest coming up here where people are getting scammed, right? I think it's
I was
next
going
week.
to
Daryl?
try and invite Mark to that and see if he
Yeah.
can
Is it next
contribute,
week, right?
'cause they need help next week.
So we've got like a
BG
big
Wealth Management.
big investment group, took advantage of all these people, and yeah, I mean it's amazing how many people will basically liquidate their homes in order to be able to go into some other type of opportunity. And
that they
it's just
don't
like,
understand.
That they
You
don't
should have Ron
understand.
Butler on the show. Ron Butler will talk to you about the Fortress Mortgage Group. He'll talk to you about a whole bunch of other scams that have taken place over the course of years where people, I mean, have you heard of that mortgage broker that's out in, where was it? It was just out west near London, where that mortgage broker basically took $230 million of people's money or something insane and gave promissory notes. And she was involved as both like the borrower and the facilitator.
Yeah.
Fraud will exist, guys, forever.
Uncle Ron doesn't get invited to our family Christmas anymore because we've labeled him as an extremist. But every once in a while,
a bully.
Every once in a while, he's got some good information, and I think that the problem really is greed. I mean, I think ultimately that's where this all comes down to, and that needs to be just wiped out of us. Why can't people just be okay with average returns? If you're going to get some sort of promise that you're going to double your money in 2 years, or that you're going to have, whatever the return is, that this problem, you're going to retire soon, or whatever attracts you, it's all based on greed, and in every industry, it all sort of stems from the same things, like problems over developers, lawyers, real estate agents. When greed takes over, people just really start to not act themselves.
PK, you know as well as I do that half of that is also perception problems, right? Like half of the problem is that all the realtors that you see out there are showing you like dollar bills that they're like just flinging off and driving around in BMWs, all of which are leased, for insane amounts. Like the truth is, what I really wish Canadians saw from a law office, if you ask me the one thing I would want them to see, I would want them to see how different the life is of the people who you respect versus the actual incomes that they have and the net worths. Everyone claims to have high net worths. Everyone claims to have these great lifestyles. And some people do. Like, I'm not trying to begrudge the fact that but way more people are claiming to have these lifestyles than do. And as a result, you have such a distorted view when you watch social media, when you take a look at people's cars, when you look at people's houses. Like, it would be so much more interesting if you actually saw these houses, if there was some sort of VR helmet that you could put on that showed you the houses along with the debt that is being carried on each of them.
The debt, yeah.
Little badge. This is my income. This is like what's in my RSP. This is how much debt I'm carrying, like all that kind of stuff.
Totally. And this is how much the CRA is pursuing me for.
Yeah. Any CRA stuff going on yet? So all the CERB and the SEBA loans, has anybody got any liens or writs against their property?
It may very well, but I'm not seeing it in my office. I mean, the truth is, by the time the CRA process is largely not something my office pays attention to unless it's registered on title.
Yeah.
And to be very frank, CRA registration on title usually takes about 3 years of arrears or anything else. So anything that would have happened from the bubble popping hasn't even really affected title for CRA registrations. I haven't noticed a preponderance of extra CRA registrations or tax liens as part of these deals. And I don't deal with CRA outside of that.
Okay, so that hasn't come up yet. January 13th, there's an article that said that 60% of mortgages are to renew by the end of 2026, over the next 24 months. 60% of mortgages, right? How do you think that's going to play out? Because this is what it is right? We've had what did we have, Joe? We had the deferral cliff. We had the trigger rate, whatever. We had something
everything
else. Now it's the renewal
something
crisis.
else.
So the renewal crisis mark is
This is
stacked.
old,
60% of mortgages. This is just January 13th. They just released this. Between now and
Another
the end of
renewal
2026, how is that going to play out for people?
I think it's going to totally be dependent upon what the market conditions are. Because if the market remains liquid, that is to say you can sell for a reasonable amount, then those people who are most in trouble will still have their exits. If, however, there are a bunch of people who have locked in and their price and if there is not liquidity for their product, or if the market continues to drop, I know it hasn't dropped officially, but in certain segments of the market, it absolutely has. If that happens, then we're going to see more and more problems. The real problems with all of these factors don't stem from the factors themselves. They stem from the lack of exits. That's it. It's the same thing as the new build. New build was fine even when prices started dropping, so long as there was exit through the assignment market. It was only when the assignment market closed off because it had a drop of more than 20%, which was the deposit amounts, that ultimately the pain began. It's when the exits close that we have problems. And right now the markets are functional. And right now there isn't a huge drop. So hopefully we get through this. But again, there's an American behemoth who's just taken power, who has Canada in its sights. And as much as we like to single Canada and believe that we have agency, we do not now relative to the Americans. The Americans drive us. They are in charge of us. Anyone who pretends that we control our economic destiny does not understand the way this world works. And that's not to criticize Canada. That's true of the world. Outside of maybe China and India, everyone has to dance to a larger tune. And we dance to that behemoth, and that behemoth has us in their sights, and that's going to change things. So what that will do to the exits, I don't know. But if it closes the exits, pain will be real. If it doesn't, and if we can continue the way we've been continuing, okay, it might be fine.
So, I mean, we all know how big a fanboy you are of Justin Trudeau and how big a liberal you are.
I am a liberal.
How do you feel about what happened? Did something actually happen? And how do you feel about our replacement options, particularly the gentleman from India? He seems to actually be gaining some momentum, funny enough. But like, are we actually going to see any liberal noise, or are you on board with Pierre? Are you going to vote conservative?
So guys, here's the thing. First of all, whichever government takes control, and it's always going to be in Canada, it's always going to be liberal, then it's going to be conservative, then it's going to be liberal, it might take 3 election cycles, but it's just always alternates, has an overall mandate to make sure that this economy functions. That's their overall mandate. It doesn't matter who comes in. And I don't think anyone can possibly look at Justin Trudeau's, particularly his final years, but even before, and say that man competently governed our economy. Right? Like you just can't. The results are in the pudding. We are looking at where we are, right? Like that's the reality. And you don't need to be partisan to admit failing. That's part of, maybe it's just a matter of being older now, but I remember when I was growing up, partisanship didn't mean that you weren't able to see virtue in another side and another party and respect other ideas and not denigrate people because of their political affiliation. We were better off that way, by the way. And I say the same thing about Pierre now. Look, there's quite a few good ideas that I think he brings to the table. And I think recognizing that doesn't make me a conservative any more than it makes you a liberal to say, hey, like one of their policies may have been good, right? Like
legalizing, you can say it.
Sure, legalizing. Exactly. Like the fact that you acknowledge that there's a policy that works shouldn't be disqualifying and make you a person non grata amongst a whole group of people. We have to collectively work towards appreciating the fact that we all have our country's best interests at heart. And there is something real about the fact that when you are ensconced in a party like liberalism for the past 10 years that has been in power, you often miss a lot of the obvious problems that are actually coming up that other people can see and deal with. I think Pierre's attitude towards cutting the civil service is totally 100% in order. Like we are in such a topsy-turvy state with our civil service where we've massively hired and at the same time we've massively increased government contracts. Like the fact that he's going to come in and just take a hammer to that, like kudos on you, buddy. The fact that he is going to replace and reinstitute certain immigration controls, you can admire these things. And the truth is, I think we're better off when there are changes of government. I think it's healthier for our body politic. Having said that, as to the Liberals right now, they've ended their cycle. They're at the end of their cycle. And I think the healthiest thing for them is to have a refresh. And a refresh does not involve a new party leader. That's not the refresh. The refresh is probably a loss, some wilderness, some time to reflect, and perhaps that reflection will actually appreciate the fact that the economy has to always come first. Because if you don't put the economy first, no one's going to follow you anywhere. It doesn't matter what you think about the environment, which is the reason I'm a Liberal, by the way. I care very much about the environment. But no one gives a shit about your environmental policies if they don't have a job and if they don't have food. They just don't. And so the number one charge was failed by this government, particularly in its last years, but also probably before. And we have to have that reckoning internally amongst the people who support liberalism.
Beautiful.
So that
Mark?
means you're voting for conservative?
I did not say that. I did, however, give you my position
that like a lawyer.
I was hoping
a lawyery there.
Darryl, I was hoping that by speaking for 5 minutes and looking passionate,
We'd forget
you
what the
actually
question was.
follow up on the damn question. You
Mark,
fuckhead.
no matter
Listen,
what,
I've been in court before.
we don't believe all the things they say about you. You're a pretty good guy, okay?
Sorry.
And you're a friend of the show, and we're always happy to have you on. I think today had a lot of really good stuff. Give us a little soundbite here for the end, just to tell our viewers and listeners to like, comment, and subscribe, if you don't mind.
Like, comment, and subscribe, guys. It's worth it.
Awesome.
Worth it.
There's a soundbite for you.
There you go.
Appreciate your
right.
time. I know we took up a little bit
As
more
a
than usual
final,
today.
as a
Please.
final note, just before I go, can I get an extra large shirt?
You
Of course.
cannot.
Right.
Of the new ones, we'll get you a new shirt because that one,
Is that the original ones?
that's one of the originals.
Okay. Yeah, the ones online right now are better.
Yeah, we got better logo.
We
now.
got a merch store.
New logo.
Yeah, love it, guys. Love it. Guys, always a pleasure. I always enjoy speaking to you, and keep up the great work.
Mr.
Thanks, Mark.
Morris, always fun.
Have a good one.
Thanks, man. Mr. TK,
Well, let's recap a little bit. I mean, he's dealing
what
with
did you talk about today?
some
TK?
really crazy disparities between appraised price and purchase price. He's
Can
got
we just
power
do
of
that?
sales.
Like, can we figure? Listen, on a 650 square foot average size unit, right? At $1,600 a foot is $1,040,000. Okay. And instead, it's coming in at $585,000.
He might be a little bit extreme on that. I mean, let's call it $1,000 a square foot, maybe. So 650.
Okay. Well,
So,
that
anyways,
makes a
hundreds of
significant
thousands of
difference.
dollars difference. But it's what a
Ouch.
refreshing take on that. I mean, the default, you save on all the closing costs, disposition costs, interest costs, and the builder might selling it later on for more money. You never know. The market could change. Bottom line is you got to close today at today's appraisal. If you say, well, I think by the time this builder actually gets it closed and sues me and everything else, he might be able to get more money for that unit, and then he won't be able to claim as much damages. It's actually a great strategy.
Well, don't you have to waive on the damages as part of this deal? Like, doesn't the developer say, okay, like, here's the deal, I'm not going to sue you for any more. I'm going to take your deposit.
There's deals that can be made with the developer.
I gotta think
chances
that should
are,
be part.
if you're just in default, the developer will have to resell the unit in order to be able to substantiate any damages. Otherwise,
I
there are
don't
no
know.
damages. What did you lose? You still own the unit. It could be worth $3 million now. You made money, right? So they have to sell the unit to be able to substantiate damages.
It's weird because as I'm listening to both of your perspectives, I mean, my perspective right now is very skewed because I'm not selling anything, right? And and what I'm gearing up to sell is so different than everything else. It doesn't really give me perspective on things. But when I hear you, I feel like the market is rocking and rolling. And then when I hear other people, I don't feel like the market is rocking and rolling.
I'm not doing that intentionally. Like,
I know you're not. This
it's
is
just
what's
like,
happening.
I have listings sitting on the market right now that aren't moving.
No,
And if I just told you those stories,
I'm not saying.
I'll tell you one story right now. Okay, got a house
Yeah.
in Newmarket, put it on the market 18 days ago for 1.5 million.
18 days ago? That's crazy.
I got an offer on the offer night, and it was a good offer, just under asking. And the seller said, "No, I want my price."
Yeah.
And the buyer said, "I'll come back in a couple of days to view the
how you're
property
doing."
again, and
Oh.
maybe we'd be willing to give you that price." And they said after that second viewing, "We don't want anything to do with it." And guess what? After a few
shit.
more showings,
Yeah.
and some feedback that was really neutral, not going anywhere, we spent all week not getting a single showing.
Oh. And so now at some point it's going to be like, you see, the first offer is the best offer. What the hell were you doing, mister? I told you to take that offer.
You missed out on it. So anyways, my
told you.
job to get him to reality and to figure it all out. And, it doesn't always work out that way, Darryl.
Well,
I got those stories too.
How many people are learning reality versus not learning reality? Because I saw an article that said somewhere that 1 out of every 5 listings is coming off the market, which is 20%, which is not as bad as you'd think in this environment. But
yeah,
is there more than that, TK? Because we know we don't believe the articles, right? Unless
and those stats are manipulated. And what's coming off the market? Like, it came off the market. Did it come back on the next day? Did it come back on, but it comes back on 3 months? Does it come back on, but they have no record of it ever coming back on again? Like, what's coming off the market?
Yeah, like what's going on here?
So I wouldn't like buy into that stuff. Bottom line is this: you're a buyer, you want to buy a property. Go around and look at the properties that you want to buy, right?
Yeah.
Follow them. How much do they end up selling for? After how many days on the market? Was there multiple offers? Does it sell over asking, under asking? Educate yourself on the market for like a couple months before you buy, so you can see what things are doing. Then you can make an educated decision on the type of property you want to buy and how much you should pay for it. Like, this is the formula I've been using my whole career. Good market, bad market. Like, this is what you do. If you see that the properties are sitting and the prices are keep going down, wait, don't buy.
Yeah, but how
if
often
you see
does
that the
that
prices
happen?
are going up and they keep getting swallowed up, make sure you're aggressively looking at the houses before prices go up further. Like, you got to be understanding of what's going on around you, like in that area of that house type. I mean, you're listening on YouTube for an opinion like mine or yours or whoever's, Uncle Ron's, based on this, macroeconomic situation. Well, the area that you're buying in, the type of property that you're buying, that may not apply, and you're going to find out the hard way, right? Or vice versa, right? So,
but it's
educate
weird
yourself.
though.
This is Mark said it mostly today a lot about uneducated buyers making these mistakes.
But isn't it weird that while some listings are falling off and some people are making deals where they lose their shirt and some people are just getting decimated.
Always like that. Market's always been in flux. It was weird that everything sold for over asking and buyers had to buy anything that came up on the market. That was actually weird. This is much more normal than anything else.
But you're getting 15 offers.
Okay.
I mean, that's
I did 15 offers before in certain markets. I aggressively priced it. It's a great house.
Yeah.
It was, all that kind of stuff. I'm not getting that on other listings.
Even
the listing that
what Bailey's working on, like just normal leases, like they ended up saying, we have some action here. If you raise if you go above asking, right?
Yeah.
Then
$50 above asking, and we'll give it to you.
Yeah, but these were like
$15 more a month.
But the fact is that the tenants were like, we have to move somewhere. Okay, there's not that many options at all.
She got those guys
for
a place?
what we're looking
Awesome.
for. She got 2 people a place.
I know, but those people who are like really in need of a place.
Yeah, like they're moving in today or tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a little suspicious when someone comes up to you and says, "Hey, man, you think they'll let me move in tonight?"
Yeah, and we were just evicted, and we're not telling you why.
Do you think that they'll let me bring my stuff in tonight? I know, like, if I can just bring my stuff in first, and then we'll go through the application process, like,
No, but they were actually kind of normal.
And I'm good.
It was offered to them to move in like a little earlier even. And they were like, no, like, come on. I mean, we need a little bit of time. Right.
Yeah.
But the point is that 2 leases both got over what the asking was. And obviously it's a small sampling.
Get deals done. Yep.
But like there must be, at least for decent places, like crazy demand, because that place just came on the market, like,
Yeah.
and instantly
My
Bailey got
first
the whole
lease I
house.
ever did, I paid $50 over asking. It was my friend. He reminded me that was my first lease because I was playing golf with him this summer. And he said, I remember I gave you your first lease. You told me it was your first time. You didn't know what you're doing. And so I called my dad, and there's like 4 offers on it. It's at Bayview and Shepherd in the Reen buildings. And my dad said, well, offer them, like it was like 1,500. Offer them 1,550. I was like, what? You can do that? He's like, yeah. So we offered them 1,550, and they took the offer.
Yeah. In these ones, it was like, listen, everything's looking good, but if you can get this, then the deal's done.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so, I mean, that only works if there's really no other option and you really need to kind of move somewhere, right? And so how much is that happening?
Yeah.
Because I posted that on Twitter, and then I got obliterated by Uncle Ron because I said rents aren't crashing.
Uncle Ron's upset, okay? He hasn't been late in a long time. He's upset. But look, I gotta finish that story because I know you want to hear it.
Oh,
okay?
yeah. Which one?
So the Indian guy in the taxi cab, the agent. So we got the deal done. Remember last episode? So he sends me an offer last minute in the taxi cab, 15-minute irrevocable. He accepts the offer at the high price. But you know what his strategy was? Tie up the property and take us for a haircut.
Oh.
That was his strategy.
How long
That's
was
why
the
he said,
tie-up?
just send me the number you need and I'll get it done. So I sent him the number that we need, which was a great number, by the way, Darryl.
I'll bet it was a great number.
And he got it accepted. So he comes back and tries to do this massive haircut after the inspection. He's playing his violin and everything else. Well,
this is conditional? Conditional?
Yeah, it's conditional on home inspection.
Okay.
So I'm not stupid. So I called up one of the other buyers and I said, hey, can you give me an offer irrevocable till tomorrow? And it was a good offer. It was a good offer. Because this guy might drop the deal, and you might be able to get the place if I know that I have it. But if you don't give me the offer, then I might just work with this guy still and negotiate with him, and extend his closing, extend his conditions and all that. But if I have your offer in hand with an irrevocable tomorrow, I'll tell my sellers, I know for sure you're for real. So he brings me the offer. Yeah, and I said, look,
I'm kidding.
I know guarantees. I got no promises.
Smart.
And we generally would have been happy to work with those guys. They're nice people.
Yeah.
And I wasn't doing this like without anything. I really thought maybe the guy would drop the deal because of his attitude, and we weren't going to drop the price.
Yeah.
So the guy calls me and he's like, big story. And then the number got less and less and less. It was like, just give me a little bit so I don't have to do my commission. I said, we're not going to change a freaking letter in that agreement. I don't care if the closing date, the name, you don't waive tonight. We work with the other buyers tomorrow. He goes, I don't even believe me. You're playing me. You're playing me. This is not even, you don't even have this. I know exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
I go, I got the offer. It's, I got another offer. Sorry, man. Tomorrow it's done.
Call my bluff, bitch.
He goes, that's what I said. Call my bluff. He goes, it's registered on Broker Bay because then it's like official and it's like in the system. I said, no problem. I registered on Broker Bay. 10 minutes later, okay, they decided to take the property. Got the waiver.
You can register it on Broker Bay even though you have a conditional offer already?
I received an offer.
Received an offer.
I registered an offer.
Yeah. Wow.
That's it.
Look at that. That's some brain work there. And they don't know how shitty the other offer is. They just know that there's an offer, right?
No one will ever know but me.
Just
and
give me
the sellers.
an offer. This is an excellent strategy, right? Very smart. I like it. Well, I know you're on fire, so at least you're on fire. But from the sounds of it, a lot of your counterparts are ice cold, TK, and the market is not doing well.
I talked to some people and they're all struggling, but
a lot of people are struggling.
I think there's usually a reason for that.
The waiter's brother-in-law at the restaurant I was in Montreal, I mean, he said there's just way too many agents and they all are leaving the market, and that's a big problem. I mean, everybody knows what the problem is, TK. There's too many agents. At the end of the day,
I want to know how many people they talked to last year.
Platinum agents need to disappear.
That's what I want to know. How many phone calls did you make last year? How many texts did you send? How many emails did you send? How many people did you talk to?
That's right.
And let me see your calendar, and then I'll tell you if you're going to have a good 2025 or not.
That's right. And let's compare it to Bailey's score, because that kid
she's crushing it. She's crushing it. She's setting herself up for world domination.
World domination.
Darryl, it's time.
It's time.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure, TK.
Until the next time,
for the
another great episode
where I was allowed to speak. Appreciate that.
And
we're gonna have to work. We're gonna need a baton, I think, next week.
So if we're Dumb and Dumber, who is?
I'm Meathead.
Which one's?
TK.
Dumb and Dumber. There was Larry. No, what were the guys' names?
Uh,
Lloyd
Lloyd
and Harry.
and Harry.
Lloyd
I'm
is
definitely
Jim Carrey.
Harry. I'm Harry. I'm more creative.
So I'm Jim Carrey. I'm Lloyd.
No, you're Lloyd. Lloyd is the other guy. What's his name?
You sure? Jeff
Jeff
Daniels.
Daniels.
Jeff Daniels. So I'm Jeff
Yeah.
Daniels. I thought that was Harry. No, that's Lloyd. Anyways, I'm Jeff Daniels.
Where are we
You're
going
Jim
with
Carrey.
this? Okay.
All right. See you
That's
next
it.
week.
That's
That's
it. All right. Well,
I'm just going to
have a
call
nice-
it. Make sure we know who they're talking about.
Have a nice day then.
See you next time.